it's black on the inside because light isn't bouncing. Maya doesn't calculate light through objects. It only calculates light bouncing on one surface. So the way that the kind of faces of this object are facing is called, the way that they're normally facing is called the normals. So I'm going to show you two things at one time. I'm going to show you how you would edit this object. We're in object mode, which allows us to kind of move various objects around in our scene and set sizes and do a bunch of other fun texturing thing. If I actually want to change the shape of this object, I need to go into an edit mode. So with the object selected, I'm going to use my right mouse button and click it anywhere in my 3D viewport, and I get this hot menu. So I can select it, start edit edges or faces or vertices. I'm going to select face first. So you can see I can select that face, and then with my same translate, rotate, and scale features, so W, E, and R. So I'm in W. I'm going to press E. It's going to allow me to rotate my face. I'm going to press R. It's going to allow me to scale my face. Right. So now I'm actually editing the shape of the object. I can edit by faces. I can select an edge and move one edge, or rotate one edge, or scale one edge. Or I can select vertices. So vertices are a little bit different because they don't have a scale and don't have a rotation in the same way. But you can go in and get really dialed into like where each edge is kind of placed in space, right? So you can grab edges this way. If I grab my edge and kind of move back like through my object, right? So I'm actually kind of moving. It's going to be easier if I maybe move it back and down a little bit so it's more obvious. So I'm actually pulling these edges, this vertex, so that the faces are kind of coming in through the back end. You can start to see they turn black. So this was the inside of the box that we were just looking at. So the way that the box, the faces normally point, Maya only calculates light when we're rendering on the outside of the object, which means that if you pull an object face through and you see the face turn black, you're actually looking at the inside of the object. It won't render. It'll show up as invisible in your rendering because Maya only calculates the outside faces of the object, and that's part of that computational efficiency, right? So in order to cut down on the number of calculations the light bounces need to take, Maya's like, okay, we're just going to calculate, since we're not going to be looking at the inside of the object, we're only going to calculate light bouncing on the outside. So we need to figure out which side of the face the outside is, and that's called normals. There's ways that you can like if you did want to pull these faces through an object, there's ways that you can do that and then kind of flip the faces, but that we'll get into that in class together. Just know that this would also make it unprintable. So when faces kind of flip inside and outside, that also makes it means that when you try to 3D print them, they are quote unquote non-manifold, right? So you always want an object where all the faces are facing the same direction and there's no holes in order to be 3D printable. All right, so that is inside and outside. I can, again, right click an empty space, change usually you're kind of just selecting your edges, your vertices, and your faces. I think for now that's all you need to really worry about. If you want to go back and oops, I just did it. Go back into face mode. If you want to go back and edit another one of these objects, you can right click and go back into object mode. Let's say you made a cube and you're like, that shape's cool, but I actually want it to, like, I want to cinch it in the middle. You actually can't do that, right? Because there isn't an edge or a face in the middle of this object to cinch, right? So I'm actually going to make another cube and show you. If you know you want to just manipulate, a six-sided object, that's fine. If you know you want to do a little bit more complex modeling, you have to give it more more faces, more vertices to be able to move the kind of make those adjustments to the faces. And the way you do that is back in our attribute editor, back into our poly tab where we were setting the width, height, and depth. So you can use the slider if you want to use the slider, or you can use this subdivision. Or you can hard type. In order to give it more faces, you can use a subdivision. So that's the width, the height, and then the depth. And now I have more faces to play with. I always want to, so I can select a face and kind of move it out, right? Or move it in, or same thing, I can rotate these faces now. And so now you have more faces to play with, so you can get more complex shapes. You never really want to, it's always best in modeling, again, computational efficiency. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get back into my object mode. Object mode, there we go. For computational efficiency's sake, it's always best to have an object with a minimum number of faces. So if you don't need all these faces, don't add them. It's much more efficient for Maya to calculate out the rendering with fewer faces. So just like one more quick, so if you wanted a box with kind of soft edges, one quick and dirty way to do that is to use this like bevel tool. You can see it in your modeling toolkit down here too, bevel. So if you click bevel, you can either hard type numbers in, or you can left click on the highlighted menu option and then slide your mouse. So I can do the same thing for segments. Segments is gonna give you again, it's gonna kind of increase the number of faces, right? So it gives you a softer edge, and then the depth is like how far do you want to bevel. And if you kind of want to, so like the slider will only bring you up to a certain amount, but if you wanted to, let's say, hard type a number in, it's probably going to delete the object and get really weird. Yeah, so I'm kind of moving backwards, which is kind of cool. It's interesting to look at. Let's say 6, and then let's say 0.5. You can always hard type those numbers in too. And then the mitering is just always on, and that's kind of like the miter is the seam here at the corner, and then the chamfer is on. If you turn it off, that's just like kind of basically undoing the bevel. All right. So that's a way to get like nice soft objects. So if if you go in and you pull your edges, let me option and rotate. So remember I pulled that edge out. That was a way that you can kind of move all of your edges around into kind of complex shapes. But if you wanted the shape to be soft, you just after you do all of your editing of the vertices, then you can put a bevel on it and it just softens everything. And you can kind of, when you click on the object now, you can kind of see what the beveling did, right? It literally added more faces in here. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, there is one more thing. So, okay, let's just review what we've done. We've kind of set up a default workspace. I'm going to reset my current workspace to my default. We went over how to move into quad view. We talked about zooming, so using your middle wheel button to zoom in and out. If you're still on a trackpad, you can pinch. Yeah. You can pinch. Oh yeah, don't use your trackpad. Use a mouse. So you can use your middle mouse button to kind of zoom in and out. Option left mouse button is going to allow you to rotate. Option middle mouse button, or option or alt middle mouse button is going to allow you to pan around your scene. You can reset your windows. Let's see if I can do that here. If you select your object, let's say you're like kind of like lose your object and you want to reframe your object, you can hit F while with your mouse hovered over your active window, and it will just reframe your object in your viewport for you. Something kind of went awry over here. This top should show me a perspective view like this. That is interesting. So we've talked about kind of toggling between those views. You can also change the single viewport up here under panels, and that orthographic view that I was talking about, you can go into front or side here, or go into kind of bottom view if you wanted to, right? So this is another place that you can change your view. If you wanted to go back to your perspective view, you can go into panels, perspective, and then perspective. All right, I think that that's mostly it. So we're going to be using the poly modeling next class, and have fun with some shapes, and I will see you in class.